Hello to all readers who have returned to my solo leveling series, also known as Solo Leveling. In the previous episode, we saw that monster statue almost killed the protagonist, Sung Jin-Woo. But luckily, thanks to his supreme survival instincts and strong will to live because he always remembered his younger sister and his mother, who was still in a coma. In the hospital, he narrowly escaped death. So, in this part 2, how much further will those cursed rules suffocate our protagonist, and what must he do to survive? Without further ado, let's continue with part 2. After the statue settled on its throne, Ju-yi anxiously ran over as fast as she could, only to be stunned by the sight of a long trail of blood leading from his leg. The statue holding a shield had completely severed one of Jin Ji-Yu's legs. She tried to treat him at all costs, but even with blood spraying all over her face, it was no use. Now, everyone's turned on each other, arguing because the first person who suggested going ahead is now suddenly blaming the leader for making a bad decision. Leader Song Ji-jun had no choice but to take the blame, and the large statue suddenly raising its arm caused the entire dungeon to shake violently. From the middle of an underground altar, it crawled up. According to the myths, it was used to offer treasures or sacrifices to the gods. Continuing, to reason to the third rule, which is to believe in gods. Immediately, the first person to suggest continuing, to go deeper into the cave, drew his sword, taking the leader as a sacrificial offering, with everyone quite upset because this bloke was friendly and easygoing, but now this is just too much. But leader Song Ji-jun agreed to go there alone, when suddenly a flame flared up right behind him. So wouldn't you know it, a sacrificial offering is needed. Song Jin-Woo then got 2 people to help him inside the altar to have a look. Just as the 3 people entered, 3 more flames around them lit up. He was worried whether anyone would come to rescue them if they just waited inside. The gate had been open for a week now, and they would definitely make their move before any help arrived. A gate will fully open in 7 days. That's called a dungeon break. Monsters will escape through the gate. So, the purpose of these raids is to eliminate the insect and lock the gate before that time. And if this team fails here, then that thing will escape into the outside world, while Jin-Ah is visiting her mom in hospital. The little girl recounted many stories about her day at school, but her mother just lay there, still and not opening her eyes. Song Jin-Woo called the last 2 people in, and the number of flames that appeared was just right. From the altar, a bolt of lightning struck, and the earth created another circle of blue fire surrounding the outside. Finally, the door opened, but the stone statues suddenly started moving closer. Song Jin-Woo looked around and reminded everyone to absolutely not take their eyes off them, otherwise the statues would move. However, the act of staring at that terrifying monster made a girl too scared to do so. Throwing everything away and running out of the altar extinguished an orange flame. This caused the door to close slightly, but in return she managed to escape safely. Another orange flame sputtered out, and the gate continued to close a little more. Jin-Woo shouted for everyone not to move, or it would create a blind spot with more people lost. Just standing still and absolutely not taking their eyes off the stone statue would be fine. These green flames were a timer. When they all went out, we would be saved. Meanwhile, the green flames also gradually extinguished over time. Song Jin-Woo summarized 3 things, with the third being to place trust. That was definitely a trap. A false hope appearing before one's eyes when facing fear and danger. It might be testing everyone to place their trust in the god. However, another person could no longer bear it and pushed him down to the ground before running away. Another orange flame sputtered out, and the gate continued to close a little more. The friendly uncle could no longer bear it either because he had a family at home. He had to apologize to everyone and threw away his sword to leave. Song Jin-Woo was extremely angry, seemingly falling into despair. However, he had succeeded in pulling the wave of life countless times before, so he had not given up. He would definitely survive. Only 3 people remained, and the leader urged Ju-yi and Jin-Woo to run because both of them still had a long future ahead. He would stay here to hold the door. However, due to overexerting himself to heal him, Ju-yi was exhausted and did not respond. Song Jin-Woo immediately urged the uncle to help her run first, but Ju-yi wanted the uncle to take her out and leave him behind, leading to a dispute among the 3. Jin-Woo raised his voice, not listening to the 2, saying he had promised to treat Ju-yi to a meal, so he gave her the stone he had found today as an invitation to that meal. The leader then struck the girl unconscious and had to listen to him and leave before the soldiers could approach. Left alone in the dungeon, Song Jin-Woo told himself that he should have bought a more expensive insurance package for his mother and brother to benefit from. With resentment in his heart, he grabbed a sword, determined that if he was going to die, he would at least take one down with him. A soldier statue began to swing its sword and threw it straight at him, but it only grazed past. Next, another one struck, knocking Jin-Woo far away, thinking about how someone as weak as him had managed to survive until now in his own way. He wanted to become strong too, but it was all in vain. They continued to torment the male lead, severing another arm, and finally dealt a blow to his neck. Remembering the uncle earlier mentioning limits and then abandoning everyone to run away, that was just an excuse to justify himself. He also had a family. He wanted to survive and return like everyone else. Finally, Sung Jin-Woo was tortured, enduring excruciating pain, to the point that their bloodied corpse was skewered like a piece of meat and then thrown down again. Earlier, he had felt happy because he had sacrificed himself to save everyone, but that was just lying to himself. In truth, he did not want to die at all. His body lay on the altar like a sacrificial object, and the stone soldier had begun to raise his sword, preparing to finish him off. Before death, Sung Jin-Woo thought to himself that if he had another chance, suddenly a hidden mission called Courage of the Weak appeared. It asked if he had qualified to become a player and whether he accepted it. If he chose not to accept, his heart would stop beating immediately. In the end, the accept button was pressed. Part 3. Sung Jin-Woo jolted awake in a hospital bed, unable to believe that he was still alive. His legs intact and the stab wound in his chest gone. Could it have just been a dream? Suddenly, two people entered the room. They were the head of the monitoring department of the Hunter Association. The male protagonist was stunned to find out that he had been in a coma for 3 days. After that incident, Uncle Song Chi-jun had lost an arm and would likely have to retire. Ju-yi was receiving treatment after suffering a severe mental shock. It was feared that she would leave the hunting profession. Only 6 people survived after discovering this 2-level dungeon, and immediately after, a guild with S-rank hunters, the White Tiger Guild, had arrived. However, at the scene, only Sung Jin-Woo was found unconscious, while the temple or statue or whatever it was had left no trace at all. This was very hard to believe for them. The head of the monitoring department of the Hunter Association speculated that Sung Jin-Woo had awakened after awakening, because the value of a hunter's ability is determined right at the moment of awakening and does not change for a lifetime. But there are still rare cases where hunters will reawaken, surpassing their limits to rise to rank A or S immediately. The male protagonist placed his hand on the magic power measuring device and was eagerly waiting. But what hope was there only to be disappointed when the reading was even lower than the average rank E? He was not much different from an ordinary person. The reason the weakest hunter survived and the dungeon disappeared without a trace remained a big question. However, one strange thing was that only Sung Jin-Woo could see the system panel right in front of him. At this moment, the memory of being killed briefly flashed back, recalling that it had asked something about qualifying to become a player. Jinna had come to scold her brother, saying he should value himself more, as he made her worried to death. She even threatened that if he continued to be like this next time, she would drop out of school to work, so he wouldn't have to be a hunter anymore. Sung Jin-Woo tried to ask his sister if she could see this, but Jinna didn't understand anything and thought he was losing his mind, then left. It turned out that this system panel was not touch sensitive, but voice activated. When he said open mailbox, a notification appeared that he had become a player, and the system would support the player's development. In case of non-compliance with the directives, he would face penalties. Sung Jin-Woo tried to confirm the daily mission of strength training to see what would happen. It displayed a list including push-ups, sit-ups, running, and many other exercises. The countdown timer was still running, but he didn't care, because lying sick like this, what was the point of training? The head of the supervision department of the Hunter Association is reporting to Chairman Go about the fact that Sung Jin-Woo has not reawakened at all. This incident is too mysterious and completely different from any case that has ever occurred before. Chairman Go decides to treat this as a special case that needs to be investigated again. Meanwhile, at the Hunter Guild base, one of the 5 largest hunter associations in South Korea, the guild leader is assigning Vice President Cha Ha-yeon to participate in guiding an upcoming BRN. She needs to train the new recruits and conduct field training. Cha Ha-yeon is not confident in her guiding abilities, but the guild leader believes in her strength to succeed. That night, during the community activity hour, suddenly a portal appears in the middle of the road, obstructing traffic. The people can only wait for the hunters to come and clear it up soon. It is past midnight, which is also when Sung Jin-Gi's daily mission time runs out. The punishment is immediately applied. Suddenly, a violent earthquake strikes, knocking him to the ground. Opening his eyes, Sung Jin-Woo finds himself in a vast desert, and facing him is a bizarre giant desert scorpion. The task of this punishment is to survive for 4 hours. 2 nurses enter the hospital room, but do not see Sung Jin-Gi anywhere. Even if they search the entire hospital, they would not find the patient, as he is currently running for his life in the endless desert. There is not just one scorpion, but many, forcing him to run for 2 hours already, with sweat pouring down so much that he can hardly breathe normally. With only 10 seconds left to complete the punishment, the scorpion jumps up and catches up to him. In the fragile moment between life and death, the countdown clock reaches 0. Immediately, Sung Jin-Woo returns to the hospital room, lying on the floor, gasping like a dead dog. Time passes, and his recovery ability is very fast. He will soon be able to leave the hospital so that his younger sister at home will worry less. Hearing that Sung Jin-Woo has recovered, although happy, she brings a bouquet of flowers to the hospital to visit, only to overhear the nurses whispering to each other that since he woke up, he has been running every day. That is Sung Jin. No matter how much he is urged to eat, he does not listen, even though he is seriously injured, truly a stubborn patient. Hearing this, she sadly turns to leave, perhaps because she sees him as different from herself. someone who has suffered a severe mental decline and is wavering about continuing to be a hunter. It has been 4 days since he woke up. Each time he completes a daily mission, the main character receives 3 rewards. The first reward is complete recovery, which helps all fatigue disappear immediately. The second is ability points that Sung Jin-Woo can allocate to whatever he desires. He boosts his muscle strength. He often talks to himself in the hospital yard, making everyone look at him strangely, and the final reward is a random box. The past few days, he has received trivial gifts like pens or band-aids, but today he gets a key. This is a teleportation key to a dungeon instance that can be used at exit number 3 of the station. TV is reporting on the situation of the gates today. Just like the weather forecast, a few DNC rank gates have newly appeared. Among them, the B rank gate that appeared at the seaport the day before is being planned for a raid by the Hunter Guild. Recalling 4 years ago, one day, the mother of the 2 brothers, Nam-chin, suddenly did not wake up anymore. She was afflicted with a condition known as the final sleep or niche water. The disease was discovered since the appearance of the gates, with an incidence rate of about 1 in several tens of thousands of people. Modern medicine can only strive to maintain life. At that time, Nam-chin was working as a construction worker for a bad boss when suddenly his body showed strange symptoms, and he awakened to become a hunter. At that time, Nam-chin was working as a construction worker for a bad boss when suddenly his body showed strange symptoms, and he awakened to become a hunter. He joyfully went home to tell his younger sister that he could earn enough money to pay for their mother's medical expenses, regardless of how dangerous that job was. However, on the very first day of the raid, he encountered a difficult group of teammates who chased him away, telling him not to get in their way, and especially, they did not share the rewards with someone who was of no use. The more he thought about these things, the more Sung Jin-Woo worked hard to train his body. Soon after, Nam-chin arrived at the station where the key to teleport to the dungeon instance could be used. He was confident in his ability to escape, so if he encountered danger, he would just run headlong like when he was a cricket. Suddenly, a lock appeared in front of the key, and Sung Jin-Woo inserted it. However, unfortunately, once he stepped into the dungeon instance, the door would lock behind him, and he could not get out. This was entirely a different dimension because the people were still moving about normally at this station. This meant he had to defeat the boss to escape. But as an E-rank hunter without a team, could he achieve anything? He began to descend. But the gloomy atmosphere of this dungeon made him feel uneasy. Suddenly, 3 goblins appeared right in front of him. Previously, facing one had almost killed him, let alone 3. Sung Jin-Woo tried to dodge and block their attacks, but after a few hits, he began to fall into a passive position.